Welcome to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. Are you evaluating your career in real estate? Feel like you're ready for a fresh start? Or ready to take your career to the next level? This is your podcast. Welcome back to So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. I am here once again with my co-host, Alicia Soikawa. Hey, Alicia. Looking gorgeous and glam, getting ready to go to a settlement. And Deborah
Yes, got a
Martin,
closing.
equally gorgeous and glam and in action. Just got a lead right before we jumped on the podcast. So everybody's in action in the spring market. And I think the thing we want to talk about today is very seasonally appropriate because we're in the spring market. And if you have been under a rock, perhaps you don't know that we have had a new decision or new opinion regarding clear cooperation. NAR has come out with a stance on clear cooperation, and the new directive to us is that we are now to put all listings in the MLS, whether they are soon to be marketed or whether they are active and on the market and ready to be publicly, quote unquote, publicly marketed. So I'm interested to hear Deborah and Alicia's take on this because we haven't discussed this at all between us, I don't think. And it's all very new. I've listened to some podcasts, read some articles, read some opinions. I have my own personal opinion about this. And we wanted to kind of tackle it both from how we're perceiving it, and then more importantly, from the position of consumer perception, because really that's what it's all about. And I think that the original inception of the policy that kind of took away the, I'm going to use the word forced essence of clear cooperation, which is everything had to be in the MLS, came from the fact that the consumer was being deprived of a decision in that some just didn't want their properties in the MLS at all for various reasons. Now, some people think that it's just like, the ultra rich or the ultra luxury, or the other end of the spectrum, maybe the people that like really don't want to do anything to their houses. But I don't know about you guys, but I have had a broad spectrum of people who prefer, for various reasons, to either begin the process by not putting their house into the MLS or to do it that way the whole way through. So first of all, I want to get your take on what this new decision means to you. And then I want to hear what the consumers that you guys have been interacting with since this came down the pike, what you guys have been hearing. And I'd love to hear anything that you're hearing from other agents in the industry as well. So who wants to start?
I want to go first on this one because I do have a strong opinion about it. Maybe because I haven't been licensed, like Meredith, you've been in the business for years and years, and I'm under 10 years in the business. And so my perception prior to being a licensed real estate agent, I still look at things as a consumer. So I have a very easy time understanding their pain when they don't want to pay high commissions. I understand their stance on how murky the process is and how convoluted the process often seems. So, on clear cooperation, for anybody who just doesn't really wrap their head around it, if we're telling the public that your sale is going to be better, smoother, faster if you hire an agent, but then the agent in turn has to follow rules that don't serve the client at the highest level, like what they desire, are we really helping them? And those were MLS rules. So I take a listing, I know this person's situation, and they are not ready to have it broadcast through the MLS, and they were forced to. So, from that regard, I'm glad that we've had a modification to the process. Now, on the other hand, if homes are not visible, it's not fair to everybody. So how many people, how many buyers do we know that got beat out or missed out on a great home because it wasn't marketed and available to everybody to see? So I don't think, I want to start out with saying my opinion is there's not any one perfect answer. And I like the solution of offering options. If somebody doesn't want their home published, okay, within reason. And if somebody but on the other hand, we do need exposure for everybody. What I don't like, I don't know that the individual MLSs, like across the country, the rules are now different. And that makes it more in my area in Atlanta, we have two MLSs that we use in the metropolitan area. But just on the north side of where I work, there's another MLS. And oh, wait, west of there, there's another MLS. So if every MLS has a different rules, then how are we really helping the consumers? Alicia?
Interesting. And would you, let me ask you a quick question on that, Deb. Would you sometimes put the same property in multiple MLSs?
I put every listing I take in all of them, and it costs me a lot of money to do that. But I do that because my seller has hired me to get the most exposure possible. So, how is now what I don't want to happen is to be reliant upon Zillow or a third party site to broadcast my home and market the homes that I'm hired to sell. So if I fail to use all of the MLSs at my disposal, I'm not actually showcasing. I mean, how many agents have their preferred MLS that they look in? If you're in an area where there's only one, it's simple. But
Hmm.
how many parts of the country is it not simple?
Yeah, true. Interesting. So that puts a whole other kind of twist on it. All right, I want to come back to that. But Alicia,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I think it's a state by state issue. I think they're trying to pass a national rule when everything is really state by state. It's kind of like how the education piece, if you want to get really controversial, every state has different needs, different markets, different things going on, different house prices, different types of industry. And I think, as Deb said, we have like 7 MLSs in Virginia. And I'm only in CBR MLS. We overlap and we can see some of the other MLSs, but in Williamsburg, which is only 45 minutes from here, it's a different MLS. And Fredericksburg is only an hour, and that's a different MLS. I don't service those parts. I refer those out. Charlottesville is only 45 minutes. So I'm a very hyper-focused agent, but that's also like, but then you think about New York, they don't have an MLS. So how do their rules fall, right? So New York, Manhattan, they don't fall under the same guidelines. So again, I think it needs to be more of a state. They're going to have to take it down and make it based on each state and what their MLS is. Because when we sign as a realtor, we sign with MLS. Like you can,
Well,
it's
in my
commercial.
area, we have one association realtor MLS, and then we have a private MLS.
Mhm.
So different rules, different
Yeah.
fees.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like you can choose, right? If that's up to you and what you, it's like it's on you as an agent to advertise why me. And
Mhm.
so a buyer might or a seller might say, I'm going to work with her because she's going to put it in all the MLSs and that makes sense for my fee I'm paying you. But someone else might say, I don't care. I like my person. And as long as it sells, I don't care. Right. So everybody has a different take on it. And I think that's what's so cool about our business is that we can do it the way we want to do it. I came from a very heavy regulated um, in pharma, it was so regulated, like we couldn't even speak on certain things. Like you would go to jail. Like, there were people that literally went to jail for
Yeah.
doing things. And so I think coming from that to like it's kind of like the Wild Wild West here, even like as long as you have the equal housing and like there's certain things are like a non-negotiable, but people kind of like, you know, oh, it's lots of shades of gray.
But don't
Yeah.
you think, Alicia, that you bump into agents all the time who do what's most convenient and cheapest for them and not necessarily with the consumer in mind?
Well, then you could also argue the fact of people that don't stage or don't use professional photography
Mhm.
or you're not willing to do postcards or not willing to do professional sign install. It's not for me to say that that's better or worse. It's that,
Oh, it absolutely is my opinion.
and
I have
that's what I'm
very
saying.
strong opinions
But you
about
can
But
that.
have an opinion, but it doesn't, I don't think that just because of that, that like there are plenty of agents that you're like, how did they get that listing? But they sell it and they do a good job. There are some great agents out there that don't do business, don't do a lot of business. And then there are some agents that when you speak to them, they do such a large quantity and you're shocked at how much they do because they're almost like completely how are you doing this? You're a moron, or they're ethically issued. Like we all have opinions about each, individual in the business. I think there's so many people, so many different brokerages have different rules, different, some brokers don't even know who's in their brokerage, right? And some brokers have to review every single line and dot and what you do and everything. So I think you can't, it's very difficult. Like some people don't even know the NAR exists. There are licensed agents out there that don't even know there exists. Like they don't even realize that there's new rules. I'm telling you right now. And
there are.
so it's the truth. They just kind of do what they want to do and they don't care. It's like, wait until they get caught kind of thing. I think it just depends on, you have to service your clients the best you can. And long as and there's not an ethics or something that comes across you, you can only just manage that. I think you can kind of get into this rabbit hole of crazy. But in our MLS, we've had coming soon, we've had all that stuff. We have checks we can authorize to not be in the MLS. We've had all these things the whole time. So for me, nothing changes. And I would wonder how many MLSs that are like that out there.
Well,
So
do
Yeah.
you think that that there are some bigger brokerages that are trying to create their own MLS nationally because there's not a national MLS because it's state by state? Doesn't it
yeah.
look like from the outside that there is a movement for we have a couple of big ones that are trying to
Yeah,
consolidate?
I think they can try and they can, but there's definitely that, there's certain brokerages that appear to have a heavy footing in every single MLS, but they don't. And I can tell you that there are certain areas that they don't exist in. Some of the bigger names we're talking about, they don't exist there. So if you really want to do a national MLS, you're gonna have to wait,
Well, in my
you know?
opinion, that's what I see Zillow doing.
Mhm.
They are everywhere.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
in New York, where there's not an MLS, they have a presence. So
Yeah. I don't, I guess for myself, and I coach agents to feeling this way, you can kind of get caught up in what all the things are and how this is, how this is going to affect me. I don't really get, I just do what I need to do for my clients. And I tell my clients to focus on what they need to focus on. You do what you need to do to stay in your boundaries where you practice, just like in any situation where you're medical, whatever you do, document, and do the best you can and show up and get better every day and
I
move
just
forward.
want the agents who are listening, and I mean they're tuning in to Meredith's podcast here because they want real estate specific information. And I want to put out there that it's up to us to raise the bar for the industry
Thank you.
I
That's
as
agree.
on an
exactly what I was gonna
individual
say.
Yeah,
basis.
I agree with you. So you can do that locally for your people locally, but I think you can't get obsessed or worried about what's happening at a national level because it doesn't affect you. Like what's going on in New York City is not affecting me in Richmond, Virginia. It just is, it isn't. Like whatever they go through with they don't have lock boxes. They don't do independent showings. They don't have any of the things that just like when things are going on up there, they're like completely out. They don't even care what half the stuff's going on. They're living in their own world. And you have
Well,
Canadian agents that are like, I don't even care what you're doing because I'm doing my thing every year. Like it's kind of funny because I coach a couple of Canadian people and they're like, what are you guys all worked up about down there? Like it's just so funny how every perspective is so different because I have agents in California, I have agents everywhere, and it's whatever you're going through in your business. And whoever's listening is going to be in a different area, in different business, and likelihoods it could be someone newer in business and a lot of stuff I think is tactics to scare the crap out of people. And unfortunately, and that's how fear is something that a lot of people live by and it rules everything that they do. That's all.
well,
I'm
let
like,
me take you guys to like a kind of like a bigger, a broader perspective on this. And let's put ourselves in the shoes of the consumer because we talked about the seller. And I think the only difference I really see between, or not the only difference, is difference I see between the seller who decides, to use an agent who is going to take the time to put the property into the proper MLSs and the agent who doesn't stage or take professional photos. What is happening that's different is the experience for the buyer on the other end, right?
Yep.
So this is where I think about, sometimes I sit there and because I'm a real estate nerd and I think about this kind of thing, like I'll try to play out in my mind what would happen if we go down this whole long road into the future. Like what would happen if there was one centralized MLS? Well, I don't think there would because we are anti-monopolies in this country and that would be a monopoly and I don't think that would ever really work. There's always going to be a competitor that comes up and I know exactly who that competitor is probably going to be if that happens. And I think we are headed that direction right now. Um, and I think that there is an opposing force that is also really trying to elevate the position of the agent because they are the key holder, they're the gatekeeper for
And
information.
gatekeeping is the whole reason the lawsuit came up to start with. I don't think the lawsuit went in the manner it could have. It didn't solve the problems that we have, unfortunately,
Mhm.
because gatekeeping is absolutely the problem here. It's
Right. Well, and it's interesting because there were two opposing things in the lawsuit even. One was that proprietary, like amalgam of information that wasn't available publicly, but the other one was the forced overlay of a particular strategy for selling on the consumer. So there were like these two different things at play.
If you're interested in learning how to become that go-to local real estate expert all the sellers call to give you their listings, read Farming for Real Estate Agents. You can pick up your copy today on Amazon, Kindle, on Audible, or anywhere you get books.
Now, I'm curious to know, because above all of the principles that we abide is fair housing. And that is like it's above and the foundation of everything that we do. And clear cooperation is really based in the concept of fair housing, giving the same availability, at least, of information and access to properties to every person that is, eligible to purchase it. So I think what we've seen is that there are lots of agents who have unique access to properties, and some are truly and completely just acting as vessels for their clients who say, I do not want this publicly marketed for whatever reason. And it's a valid reason enough to the sellers that they understand, even if they don't get mass market exposure and therefore possibly don't get the highest possible price, they're okay with that because their privacy or their need to not have people traipsing through their house or whatever is trumps the need for perhaps the massive market exposure. And then there's, these agents who kind of shepherd these sellers. They are gatekeeping, and sometimes not intentionally, but they are the key to that information. And just by necessity, not every buyer will know about it. So the question becomes, where's the line here? And I think this nuclear cooperation opinion is to try to create a happy medium. Now, I've heard some prognosticators say that what's going to happen is it's just going to make everybody unhappy. So I don't know whether that's true.
Well, if you try to be all things to all people, that's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
But there has to be a balance because we know, sadly, fair housing is still an important issue in real estate. I mean, we're 2025 and we still have it pop up every now and then, and it's ugly when it does. And I was shocked the first time I came across just a blatant, ugly violation of fair housing law. And I couldn't even believe it. So I get that it's needed. We're just not there, but we're never going to be a perfect society. My call to the agents who are listening is you have the ability and the authority to raise the bar. And the consumer experience is our responsibility. And if you think it's okay to take cell phone pictures that don't highlight the best features of a home, shame on you. I like, that's my stance on it. We are being paid good money to do a job at and I do everything with excellence. When Alicia was in pharmaceuticals, she did it with excellence. We are the types of people who go about doing our job at a very high level. And I strongly encourage everybody to look at the job you're doing. And are you serving the consumers at the highest level? And are you raising the standard for the people around you?
I love that perspective. Yeah. Let me ask you about this, what's come down the pike for most of us, at least in my MLS. And Alicia, you were saying that yours was already this way. But I think what's changing for us is right now we have two options, essentially. One is either you put it into the MLS or you don't put it into the MLS. And you can start not in the MLS and then put it into the MLS at some point with the seller's written permission. But there's not this like middle ground thing, which is in the MLS without public marketing. So this is the thing I'm a little bit like confounded by, and I want to see what you guys think of this because, okay, so I guess public marketing means that's not being fed to the aggregators like Zillow and Realtor.com and those. But Zillow is a brokerage, so they're still getting it. But what is the stop point at? They can't then feed it.
So
to
are you saying they shouldn't be a brokerage,
website?
Meredith?
Well, I don't know, but I am saying that it seems like there's a lot of gray there, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think about? Is that your understanding? And how do we as agents explain to the consumer on the seller side and the buyer side when working with them what this all means to them when they ask? Who wants to tackle that one?
I think Alicia has still, I mean, every week I feel like I'm saying the same thing. Like if we could all be Alicia, because she works by referral in a small market, she has the perfect business set up.
Yeah.
Versus what I do, which is I have multiple MLSs. I work too large a region. I have people everywhere. And all of this really does impact my business. If I'm working with a luxury client who really doesn't want their home exposed to everybody, there are going to be times where they might ask me to get it sold without having public exposure. They certainly don't want an open house or any, and they're even sensitive about what photos we publish because of their privacy. Um, I get that. And I have worked with families who have just an estate situation where they have to dump off a home as fast as possible. Sometimes just go into an investor network is a better choice for them.
Right. Right. So I'm
So,
curious with those
yeah.
people, like let's take the luxury people first.
Mhm.
And there now you're having to say to them, well, now there's a new rule that I have to put your listing. I have to submit it to the MLS. It's not going to be publicly marketed, but it does go into the MLS. How do we make them feel like they're still comfortable with that?
Professionally. I mean, it's not every conversation we have in real estate is comfortable. And it's uncomfortable when they say, I want you to sell my house, but I don't want you to follow the rules. Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I am a licensed professional and there are rules I have to follow. But what I can do for you is this. And then I would explain what my MLS rules and my brokerage rules are.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's also going to be, to both of your points, there are going to be agents who broke the rules before, are going to continue to break the rules now, or just don't even
Right.
know the rules.
Yeah. I mean, I see
And
things on
that's
social media that are completely flagrantly violating all the rules everywhere.
yeah.
And, if the agents who do that, who pull other people's listings and broadcast them on social media, and they don't even have the listing agreement for that particular property, stop. Don't do that. But
Okay.
they're right. How are you going to stop the people who don't give a rip about any of doing the right thing?
Right, right. And this is a tough because we're a self-regulated industry too. That's a tough question for those of you who haven't encountered it yet, who are listening or watching, you will, or you'll come across an agent who is a power player in your community and you know you don't want to get on the wrong side of that particular person because you might need to work with them or you might have a buyer who makes an offer on their listing and do you blow the whistle or not, on somebody who is flagrantly ignoring the rules and it makes for a difficult decision. Alicia, what do you think about when you have a buyer come to you, and I don't know if this ever happens to you, but a buyer comes to you who says, well, I know like so and so has a bunch of listings and they don't put them into the MLS and I want to know about those listings. How can an agent out there, especially if it probably doesn't happen to you because you have all the networking and the knowledge, but as a new agent who's coming in and doesn't have those kinds of connections or that knowledge, how can they position themselves to assist the buyer when every property might not be in the MLS publicly marketed?
I think they need to know other agents and out there and know them and go to open houses, go to the networking things. Our area has a mastermind that's all the agents only that
Mm.
someone started. And so a lot of people post there, does anybody have anything coming in so-and-so neighborhood? I have a buyer looking. And there are people that, you work with people sometimes for a year before they even think about signing paperwork and putting it on, or things are going to happen at some point. So a lot of times they're waiting to see, and I will do that too. I'll tell my sellers, hey, I'm going to poke around and see if anybody has anybody. So just to save you guys headache from having to prepare your home. So you don't have to rip everything out. And because sometimes sellers are putting significant costs in their homes to try to appeal to the general market when
Yeah.
they only have a certain net that they want and they're willing to sell it to someone. Our job is to broker a deal. That is it.
Mhm.
Our job is to broker a deal. Our job is to serve our client and have in our client's best interest and do it in a kind way on the other side. That's how I see it. It is black and white. So if I have a seller that wants to sell, but doesn't want people walking through their house because they're OCD psycho, and they would prefer to have someone come in and look with their shoe booties on with me and look and write an offer, so be it. They're happy. They got exactly what they wanted. I gave them what they wanted. They hired me to broker the deal, which I did do, which is what our contract says. I serve them in their highest need and interest. The buyer's happy. They got the house they want. So be done. I don't, I think some of the stuff that we get so worked up on things that don't really matter, is what I'm trying to say, that it's a lot of noise that prevents us from moving forward. So if
Yeah.
you're an agent that has a buyer that wants to be in said neighborhood, freaking knock on every single door and see if they want to sell. And if they don't, and if you don't want to do that work, then maybe you shouldn't do this job. That's what it comes down to. When you're a new agent, hear me loud and clear, it is not on a silver platter. You're seeing these agents that have paid their dues, paid their time. Meredith's been doing this for decades. I'm over a decade. Deb has been almost a decade. Trust me when I say one realtor year is like 25 years human year. And, on that set note, these agents coming in, and I'm not saying everyone, there are some great agents out there that are willing to hustle, do the work, they're earnest. Those people, that's great, bravo, keep going. The ones that come in and think this is going to be a lot of fun and let me do it on the way to drop my kids off to school, and I'm going to still have every weekend and get my vacations and do what I want, and don't bother me. It's probably not the career for you. And every time I bring an agent in or I work with someone, I have a new person that just started, I'm not going to ask her to do anything I wouldn't do. I put signs in the ground. I drop block boxes off. I've done things. I've remulched flower beds pregnant. I've done all of the things. I've been sweated. I've been chased down by dogs. I've been bitten by dogs and cats and scratched up. I've broken heels and lost my shoes in the mud because I didn't know any better. I've gotten locked in fences. I've set alarms. The things that we've gone through as agents that no one knows because we don't tell people that usually. There's shit that happens to us, but we were willing to go through the fire to go to the other side. People see you on the podcast or see you on the stage or see you doing all the things and winning the awards, and they're like, oh, that looks like fun. Let me come up there and sign up for
We
that.
can do a whole show on
Yeah.
crazy
We
stories.
have to.
Well,
We
the
have
reason I just point out is this. If you want something bad enough, you have to do the work over time to get it. Just like losing weight. I always refer this to working out. Just like becoming an elite athlete. Do you think that person just showed up and can do all those things that we see? That's my toxic trait. I see that. I'm like, that can't be that hard. I can do that, like whatever that thing is, a dance move or something, and it's hard. So the whole point is that you do things over and over and over in time, long periods to make it look easy. So remember what they say, what we have done and spent years and hours and days and dedication and consistency and sacrifice and all the things we've done to build our businesses the way they are. Different, have you, but not better or worse, just different.
Yep.
You cannot have someone walking in 2 years in, 1 year in and going, I want my stuff and this is not fair.
Yeah.
I didn't see any houses for my client because I looked in one MLS and there's just no inventory.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, then you're probably going to get fired and then they're going to be soured because they're fired because a very creative agent's going to go, I'm willing to mail, I'm willing to knock, I'm willing to go through each MLS and see who's sold in that community and call them. It's not that hard.
Oh my gosh, I just did that 10 minutes
Hard.
before our call started. I was emailing builders, smaller builders who built in this one specific area because I can't find a house for the people who want to buy. And
It's easy to wave the white flag,
yeah.
right? It's just like it's like someone that is willing to make it in Hollywood, willing to make it in the music industry, willing to make it and as an athlete, as a creative, as an artist. The people that make it, it is not an accident. Yes, there is talent involved. Yes, there is personalities and tendencies that do better at certain things, of course, right? We know that for disc and all that.
So
But
my
at the end of the day,
overnight
you know,
success,
yeah.
I'm 9.5 years in and I'm
Well,
an
I think that's
overnight success.
yeah,
If
I
you
think that's
haven't,
what's so important. I think people see it, and I think it's a dangerous, slippery slope because we do make it look easy. We
and
do make it look
that's
like
the
easy.
whole point of like the inception of this show was
Mhm.
all of the things that all the people who say, oh, I think I want to do that too, we said we must make it look really really easy. You just heard a whole litany of things that make it hard, and if
But
you
it's
still want to
fun.
be,
I
it
love
can
it.
be really fun and rewarding.
Yeah.
And I will tell you there are my new agent, to your point about really like hustling and digging for the business, who just yesterday, Monday, settled her first sale, which was 1.4 million. She watched the episode on New Agent Chronicles where she tells you about how she did that. It's like super sleuth crazy like strategy that she
I
used.
love
And
that.
she rolled her sleeves up and got dirty and got in and did it and went all out finding the house for her clients who said, went around the neighborhood and then pointed to 5 houses. And she's like, I don't know if any of those are for sale, but guess what? I'm going to find out. And one of them it was, and you never would have known it, but she found out, and she got in there and she sold them the house. It settled in like 5 days or some crazy thing like that. And it was just a phenomenal victory for her. And she is, and you know what her attitude right is before she goes settlement? What's next? I'm already on the next one, because that's how she thinks. And that's how you have to think in this business. You have to be always thinking, what's the next thing? What's the next thing
And I
to
love
stay
that. Yes.
successful? Yeah. She's
Yes.
so hungry. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
what you guys are bringing out so beautifully is at the heart of this business is our service to our clients, service to the public, certainly too. But really the heart of it is service to our clients. And that's when you get good at that and you can put everything else in the background while you're laser focused on the person who's hired you to fulfill a goal that they can't fulfill on their own. That's what creates the success in this business. That's what creates the fulfillment.
And you do that with ethics,
Yeah.
understanding that fair housing matters. And I mean, we are hired by, but we cannot, it's up to us to follow the rules. That's the point. Good
Yep.
service, high ethics. That's the standard that NAR used to stand for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting if you do that exercise I mentioned at the beginning of the show and go all the way through, like if the three of us decided today we were going to try to like make our own association of realtors and our own affiliated MLS, and we thought it all the way through to the eventual conclusion, guess what? We'd also need a code of ethics. We'd also need a bunch of rules. There are reasons that these things are in place, and it's not perfection, and there's a lot of evolution around things. But there is a reason that organizations exist and that we do have to follow rules, not just because there are rule breakers, but because there are a lot of other factors that come into play when we're serving both the client and the public at the same time. There's a dance to
I
it.
could really go controversial on that one because that's the basis. Our Constitution is along the same lines. It's written for people who want a lawful nation.
Yep, exactly right. Yeah. All right. Well, this went deep, guys. Anything else you want to say that we haven't touched on that is clear cooperation oriented?
I just think just be mindful out there. There are reasons why these things came about because people are being complete morons. So do your due diligence and do your work.
Yeah.
And, I always tell people document, document everything.
I think, yeah, I think the agents need to have an understanding about what is happening so that they can articulate it to your clients, because our role is to educate our clients about all their options. That's a takeaway. If you don't know what we're talking about today, you need help, and you need to find help so that you can explain, whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, exactly what their options are and how it's going to impact them.
Yes. Yes. Well said. All right. Well, if you guys have questions for us or you want to learn more about what we do, hear our opinions, we can also point you to resources that can help you get the information you need about this topic so that you can educate yourself and thereby educate your clients. Reach out to us, send us a DM or comment on one of our posts. We are more than happy to help. That's what we're here for, I think, above all, is to help our industry and everybody listening get better at what we do so we can all be better as a profession and serve the public and our clients in a better capacity. So thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Deborah, as always. Thank you all for listening. We so enjoy having you here. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Like what we have posted, comment or review us. We would love that on the platform on which you are listening. We're so appreciative for everything we hear from you guys and that you continue to listen and be part of our tribe. This has been So You Want to Be a Real Estate Agent. We'll see you next time.